suppose if you're working for a company for 5 years, and somebody comes and is brand new there, they've been working there for a year, and all of a sudden the promotion comes to a new department or whatever, and that person gets it and you don't.
Right.
Are you going to be happy?
Right, and
are you going to be happy with the fact that this other person, you'd be more happy that someone else? Obviously, you're going to have the feelings and emotions of you wish you had that. Right. I'm not saying you can ignore that, but can you get your heart? Is it operating out of the love of God, which would say, "Good for you. I'm so glad that you got this promotion."
And how do you look at that? To me, the way that again, you have two choices. You're at a crossroads when that comes up as to how you choose to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm upset that this person got this promotion over me, or I wasn't ready for this promotion and I didn't put my best foot forward, and so this is on me.
Yeah.
Like, I need to now go after the reasons why I didn't get it, and instead of clomping this person down to put me on top, I need to work harder to get myself to a place where it makes sense for me to get the promotion next time. Yeah. You have a choice as to which path to take there. And so many people take the I need to clomp on these other people to get ahead path, and that's destructive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may get the promotion next time, but personally, you didn't make yourself better to get there. Personally, you made yourself worse to get there.
And we could talk about this for a long time, because the attitude of I deserve it. Right. The attitude of, when people come up to me and say, I want to be a pastor, or when people come up to me and they're struggling at their job and they're wanting that promotion or whatever the case may be, my first thing to say to them is, are you acting and doing what deserves a promotion?
Right.
Or are you waiting to get promoted and then you're going to start to work harder?
Right. Yep.
It's the opposite. No, you need to work as though you have a promotion, that you have what it takes to get the promotion before you're going to get it.
Make it so that if you want to be not promote you.
Right. If you want to be a pastor, who are you pastoring right now?
Right.
What, are you waiting for the title? Are you waiting for the job at the church? When I worked at Ace Hardware, when I worked at Lowe's, I wasn't a positioned pastor, but I still pastored the people I work with. Why? Because that's who I am. That's part of my makeup. So.
It's also to being a father, right? Yeah. Like I am a father to my kids, and so in all things I need to be fathering my kids, because that's not a title.
No.
So many people, so many of us think that I'm a father because I have kids.
No.
But you're not. You're a father because you father your kids.
Yeah.
It's not because you have kids.
Well, and you're male, so it's good.
Well, obviously.
All right, so
you're not a mother if you're not mothering your kids either. Frankly, it can go either direction.
Right. Exactly.
You're also not grandpa if you're not grandpaing your kids, right? Like, in the end, the title, you have the title, you could call yourself, it almost is like doctors, right? Like those people that have doctors, it's because they were given one, right? Like Bill Cosby, I remember the big joke, like he had an honorary doctorate, right, at one point. And then, of course, everything happened with him, and everybody was like, oh, was that a great idea? So he was Dr. Cosby.
Yeah.
But he didn't earn that. He didn't go to school. He didn't study. He wasn't doing anything to get that. It was just bestowed on him. Yeah. I am a father because I have kids, but I am not being a father unless I am fathering my kids.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right.
It's beyond that title.
Yeah.
Is actually doing the act.
So we're going to get back to love. And hence, it does not parade itself, which we talked about. But then it says, love has a self-effacing quality. Oh, God.
What is self-effacing?
It is not ostentatious.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Should we Google that one?
Yeah, Google that one.
That's a tough one.
But in the other one, it says it's not proud.
So that's the same thing? Ostentatious is proud?
In other words, it's not ostentatious. So it does not dishonor others.
Ostentatious, characterized by vulgar or pretentious display, designed to impress or attract notice.
Yeah.
So love is not designed to impress or attract
That's
notice.
why it's a self-effacing quality.
Right.
And how that was what I struggled with the most.
How so? Give me an example.
Well, the fact of that, I struggled with the fact of that I had to pretend a lot of times to be knowledgeable, right? Because I wanted to be seen.
Right.
I wanted to be noticed. I had to do everything I could to get people to notice me all the way back in high school. I would do stupid things like pretend I tripped. Because why? People would laugh at me.
Sure.
You know. And so that was a very big struggle, especially when you get married to an incredibly intelligent wife, a woman that just was just crazy intelligent. There was always this wanting to have people notice how smart I was, even biblically, you know. This is what I know about Scripture. This is what I know about Scripture. I mean, when I first started off, I first got saved, you know, I'd beat people over the head with the Bible instead of winning them to the Bible, you know, because I knew all the Scriptures and I planned that. I mean, that's how I if I know every Bible Scripture, then I can fight with it. I can battle with it, right? And so that was when I struggled for a very long time. That instead of, I had to realize that because I was told that leadership, you don't present any weaknesses.
Sure.
Right? But yet, Paul says, when I am weak,
right,
I am strong. And then I had to learn that. So, but love is something quiet. Love is not puffed up, treating others arrogantly. It does not behave rudely, but displays good manners and courtesy. I mean, where has that gone in our world?
Right.
Good manners and courtesy.
Don't on social media.
Oh
my gosh.
Anywhere.
It's a cesspool.
Anywhere. I remember I opened up a door for a woman one time going into Cub.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can open my own bleep bleep door. Yeah. I'm like,
I get it at the gym all the time because I go to work out, and as I'm walking out, you know, if there's somebody coming in, I always just grab the door. Guy or woman, man or woman, I always grab the door. Funny enough, like every guy goes through the door and goes, "Hey, thanks, bud." But I've had more than one woman who's like, "I'm going to the gym. You think I need you to hold the door?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, but I also don't want it to slam in your face because I'm not a jerk.
Right.
And so I'm just standing.
Well, just all in all courtesy.
Right. Like I don't care if you can open the door yourself. I'm just standing here holding the door. Relax.
I mean, good manners. I can go story after story. I won't go. That's too long of a story, but just good manners. Watch the way people eat. Yeah. I mean, just good manners. Just being polite. You know, courtesy. I mean, it just doesn't exist anymore. It's all about me and what you can do for me and how I can get in front of you. And I was washing the windows at one of the churches I was working at, and I had one of the moms come up to me and say, "So how's that feel?" I was like, "What feel?" "Washing windows. Bet you don't do that at home."
Huh? Like, how do you know? First of all,
I always wash my windows at home. In fact, I'm the one that cleans my house most of the time, right? But there's this whole, what was that for? What was that shot for? Because I'm cleaning windows, so you think that... Anyways,
that's crazy, too, because like if you are just being courteous with people, it's almost like this massive surprise or this...
Right, it is nowadays.
This crazy thing, right? When you go, "Hey, thanks for that." People... Okay. Yeah. It makes this awkward weirdness.
Do you remember Random Act of Kindness back in our youth ministry days?
Yeah.
Back when I was your youth pastor,
right?
We used to do Random Act of Kindness, which was just doing kindness for people just out of the order. And we would go to Cub Foods. Remember, we would bag, and people wouldn't let us bag because they thought that we wanted something from them. Remember?
Because they wanted. Well, I don't have any money. I don't need
We're just doing this because we're being kind. Oh yeah, really? Why are you guys doing it?
Right. Raising money for what?
Because we're being kind. Mm-hmm. But it's gone. It's like you say. It's not even received well anymore when you do use good manners or courtesy.
No, people get weirded out by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember here's one. This is not good manners or courtesy, but this is a good story about that. So I'm colorblind, and so back when I had to wear shirts and ties to work, I had this struggle before I was married and had somebody to help me with this. Right, I had this struggle of like how do you match things up when you're colorblind. Like, right. I either look like an idiot or I got lucky, right? Like one of the two things happened because I didn't know if things matched because I was colorblind. So I remember I was in a store. I don't remember what store it was, but I was in a store and I had a tie and a shirt and I was like, "Hey," and some lady was standing there folding shirts or whatever. And I was like, "Hey, did these go to, hey, I'm colorblind. Could you help me out? Do these go together?" Right. And I did this often because I didn't want to buy things that I didn't need. Didn't go together, and I didn't want to know. And she looks at me and she goes, "That's the stupidest pickup line I've ever heard."
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, okay. Right. Agreed, but has nothing to do with this conversation.
Wow.
Really. But that was literally, it wasn't even, it was like that whole, the whole idea of human interaction between each other. Yeah. Like, there's got to be some reason why you're saying this to me, or you wouldn't be saying it. And I just needed to know if they went together, because I literally couldn't tell the difference.
It's not receivable. I mean, it's simple acts too. That's what's so interesting, is that they're very simple acts that we can do to show God's love. And we got to remember, that's not how someone receives it. It's about us doing it anyways, right? But, and then it says, love does not seek its own, insisting on its own rights and demanding precedence.
So love does not seek its own rights and demand precedence. Right. So it's not, man, like that, there's so much to unpack there too. I feel like all of these we could do an hour on.
We probably could.
But love does not seek its own. So again, the premise of, if this isn't returned to me, or it's not putting me first, then it's not healthy for me, is just not biblical.
Right. And I'm going to keep going, because it'll tie in even more. So it does not seek its own, insisting at its own rights, demanding precedence. Rather, it's unselfish.
So even if it doesn't come back to me.
Even if it doesn't come back to me.
This is what I'm going to do.
This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to act. This is how I'm going to live.
Love.
Right? Yeah. So anything we do unselfish is an act of God's love towards somebody.
That's so counter to so many things being taught in the world today. It's so counter to...
It's all about self.
Right.
Yeah.
Self-help could also be labeled self-love in a lot of ways.
Oh, for sure.
What is most important for you? That should go first.
Right.
And then if everyone else lines up underneath that, then they love you.
Yep. And if they don't, discard them. Stay away from them.
Because it's not healthy.
Not healthy, when that's actually the opposite. Being around people that disagree with you is more healthier for you than being around people that agree with you. Yeah. Because it expands your thinking.
We're going to get some hate mail on this one.
That's okay. So, and then it even gets, as we get further down the road, it's just so crazy. But love is not provoked. It's not irritable or touchy, rough or hostile, but graceful under pressure. I don't know about how graceful you are under pressure, but I can tell you just yesterday at work, I was not graceful under pressure, man. Being at that drive-through window, I'm telling you, that's got to be one of the most difficult jobs I've ever had, is working at Chick-fil-A. I'm just telling you straight up. It is, to every one of these things that we're listing right now, I'm having to try to put into practice and not succeeded on many times. But
see, the thing with me, and I always think of this as like my superpower, right? Is that under pressure, in instances like that, I just go into like, I call it get stuff, although I don't use stuff, done mode. Like I just do. I just do. And I react and I do and I get stuff done. Now afterwards I'm often stressed, mad, angry, I have to take a moment. Well. But in the moment,
right. In the pressure.
So it's funny because I will often have, and it comes up a lot with work, right? Like people will come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Like, I don't know how you did all of that,
right.
But everything was exploding around you, and you were just one thing." So here's a story. We were doing the NCAA championships for wrestling, right? And it's on ESPN. It's a big deal. Like 17,000 seat stadium, fire shooting out of the scoreboard kind of production, right? This is what's going on for the wrestling championships, and we're sitting there, everything's going. Match like 3 out of, I think there's 10 that that happen in the finals. Match like 3, we start to hear this like beeping noise. Beep, beep. And there's all this noise and crowd and all this stuff is going on. And I'm like, are you guys hearing this noise, or is this in my head? Like, what's happening here? I look down and I realize we have these battery backups that are kind of around, right? That we have things plugged into, and they're plugged into power. And in a perfect situation, they don't beep because they're plugged into power. We have no power. We're running off of this battery. Well, we have ESPN cameras and all of these announcers and all of these computers are all running off of these batteries effectively, which, as you can imagine, they've got like 3 to 6 minutes of life in them, and then they go dead.
Right.
So this whole thing is about to shut down unless we figure this out. So, of course, everyone is just like, panic. Oh my gosh, panic. ESPN is shutting, he shuts stuff down. So, what can we turn off and all this stuff? And everybody's freaking out. And I immediately, guys, go grab all of these batteries that we have and let's all string them together. So they start running. I go to try to find the guy that's doing. So that's the result was we had 15 of these little battery backups strung together. So that we had power until the power guy comes over and he's like, well, I don't know what's going on here, and I'm like, nope. So I start unplugging this thing and plugging it into different outlets until I find one that works. Everything comes back up and the guy's like, man, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, buddy, look around, man. We do not have time to diagnose exactly what's going on here. We got to figure this out. And again, afterwards, I'm like, I'm mad at this guy. I can't believe that they had power go out. How do you not have, all this stuff? But in the moment, It was, no, I don't have time to sit here and process this with you. I'm just going to plug it in until I find one that works. Yeah. So that's the way I process things. So to me, that pressure is totally normal. But to other people, it's not. People fall apart in that.
Well, yeah.
And which is okay.
I think I'm the same way. I think it's part of the characteristic of a guy or a man is when there's something wrong like that, something isn't working. I'm going to do something, whatever I can do to get it fixed. But when you're dealing with people,
right,
that are crabby, liars, grumpy, mean, belligerent,
right,
consistently.
Now you have to take that same thing and you have to apply it. Exactly. Now you have to apply all those other things we talked about in that moment.
Right. Yeah.
The hardest part for me is the people the residual, right? I would be fine with those people, but then away from that is when I would have to vent that somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And if that's in the wrong place, that could destroy some relationships fast, right? Because you can't just... This person didn't do anything.
That's why this is good.
But you're unloading on them.
That you have relationships with other men that you can go and talk to and unload on. That you can say something to them and not going to hurt their feelings or get mad or whatever the case may be, but will be there to listen, and then you can go to those ones that you love when you air it out. Yeah, but that's a whole other story. Love is not provoked, irritable or touchy, rough or hostile, but graceful. Love thinks no evil.
Thinks. Love thinks no evil.
No evil.
Good luck with that one.
It does not keep, here's one that every single one of us, it does not keep an account of wrongs done to it.
Right. That's a tough one.
Instead,
again, how many people are out there right now being taught you should be writing down everything that happened so that then you can go back and come up with the pattern of wrongs that this person committed to you.
Yeah. It's like that new commercial.
When you say that, it almost seems like, oh, that's not a bad idea. I should do that because then but that's not what this says.
No, it's kind of like that commercial now that you see during football games, that one where they throw the red. What is it when they throw the red thing out?
The challenge flag?
Challenge flag.
Let's go back and look and see if that's really what you said.
Yeah, let's go back and look and see if
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did. It's like you keep that challenge flag so you can throw it out on every single person that does you wrong and you remember it, And I dealt with that all my growing up life, that we were constantly told to remember all the dysfunction and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is love thinks no evil. It does not keep an account of wrongs done to it. It erases resentments.
Here's the two, you pair those two things together, keeps no record of wrong and erases resentments. Here's how because I don't keep record of wrong because I don't have a good memory, and so I don't remember it.
You have a great memory, but it's short.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly it, actually, because somebody will say, well, you said this, and I'll go, well, no, that's not exactly what I said. So I am, I don't keep a record of wrong, but I will have resentment in that moment with, here's exactly what I did actually say. Right. Well, that's not helpful. That's not love.
No.
Because they're like, I don't care what you actually said. No. What did you mean by it? What are we talking about here?
Right. Oh yeah,
that's a big one.
If you're married,
it's a big one for me.
That happens most of the time. That's why, one piece of marriage advice is always. So what I hear you saying is, right. But yeah, I mean, so that's what love does. It keeps no record of wrong, erases. Love does not rejoice in iniquity. In other words, finding the satisfaction in the shortcoming of others and spreading an evil report.
Gossip.
Rather, it rejoices in the truth. Mm-hmm. Great question there is, can you find truth in someone that you don't want to find the truth?
Right.
You know, I mean,
sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're like, no, I don't want to like this
Well, it's
person.
so easy. One of the things that I've done in the past is I've told groups, I was like, okay, think of somebody you dislike and why. And usually you can...
Oh, for sure.
Oh, I know exactly who that is. Now think of somebody you love and why. It takes a little bit longer a lot of times. We're so quick to remember evil. We're so quick to remember somebody's wrongs that are done to it. It's...
Why? I mean... Why? Why do we go that way as people? Why is that? I think it justifies ourselves. Oh, that's tough one, dude. Can't believe you just went there, right?
Well, I think it does.
No, I mean, I think we need to go there. So we want to see the negative. We want to go to the negative first, or see the wrong first, because then it justifies ourselves. It makes us look better. Mm-hmm. We can go, hey, I'm not as bad as this, so then I must be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That is exactly, rejoices in iniquity, finding satisfaction in the shortcoming of others.
Gosh. And that's not love.
No.
And if we don't know love, we don't know God, which is what we said earlier. Yeah. So if that's what we're doing, man, this is a tough one.
So, I mean, when we're saying when you're saying all this, that's why we need God's love so bad.
Right.
That's why we need to experience His love and need to trust in His love, because in ourselves we can't do any of these things.
This feels, it almost, as we continue to go down this, it feels nearly impossible.
It is. That's why, I mean, imagine Jesus hanging on the cross being spit on by people. I mean,
right.
I mean, just that thought in itself, the reality of they're spitting on the very one that's going to the cross to die for them so that they could have life, so that they can have redemption, so their sins can be forgiven, but yet they're spitting on them. I mean, once again, we cannot do this outside without God. We can't love in this manner without Him, without His experience and love in us. We can't. We can try, and we can do good sometimes, but the reality is, you're right, it's impossible. But that's why the Scripture says what's impossible for others is possible for God. Because if I can remember the cross in situations where I'm having a difficult time in relationships with someone, if I can go, wait a minute, God, you died for that one, just like you died for me. The other scriptures that talk about, don't look at anybody else's sin and think, oh, I got that covered. Mm-hmm. No, you've got just as many as that person does. You've got probably more, right? And so the reality of I'm just as much a sinner as that one is, or that person is, there's so many avenues to the reality of all of these things that we're talking about has to do with us believing others better than who we are and better than ourselves, us realizing that we're not somebody that everybody needs to become. We're actually someone that needs to help somebody become someone or something. Mm-hmm. And so finding satisfaction in shortcoming others and spreading evil, rather rejoicing in aggressively advertising the good. Aggressively advertising the good. I love that.
Again, it's action oriented,
right?
And it's actually not just sitting back and allow. It's actually getting out and doing, taking action,
advertising the good. Right. The one thing that was very hard for me as a parent was I was very critical. I always found what my kids did wrong. Mm-hmm. My daughter would come out and she'd be like, "Dad, come in and see I cleaned my room," and I go, "Oh, you didn't clean your turtle tank." Right. Then I read this, aggressively advertising the good. So I learned it late. My kids were probably about 12, 13 years old by the time I figured it out.
I'm there, yeah.
But so what I ended up doing is my younger daughter cleaned her room, and I came in it, and there were some things that obviously weren't done. I said, "Wow, this is the best looking room I've ever seen." And then she went over to a friend's, and I made a poster I drew a marker poster saying, cleanest room ever. Nobody's room is clean. And so when she got into her room a little later on, she saw the poster. Aggressively advertising the good. Right. I mean, why not find the good of what somebody did instead of constantly finding what's wrong with what somebody did? Right. And that's one that I love to do. I really do. In fact, it sometimes is detrimental to me. Because I'll believe people that I probably shouldn't.
Right.
I'll trust people that I probably shouldn't. Because I want to believe the best of people. I want to see the good in them. And I'll find the good in anybody the majority of the time. And like I say, sometimes that's backfired on me because what they were doing wasn't
right.
good. And so, but at the same time, I'd rather believe the good in somebody than the evil. Right. Period.
Just think about in the room cleaning situation, right? If we'll use that exact example. Hey, the fish tank wasn't, or the turtle tank wasn't clean right. though. If the whole rest of the room was clean really well, does the fact that and that was never something that they did before, right? So you have two choices. Again, we're not talking about like perfection and not. We're talking about you have two choices in front of you. You could have a room that's not cleaned at all, or you could have a room that's cleaned except for the turtle tank. Right. What you're trying to tell me is you'd rather have a room that's not cleaned at all than one that's cleaned except for the turtle tank, where you can go, hey, you know what? 3 days later, when they don't remember, when they don't associate it with cleaning the room, hey, I'm going to clean your turtle tank. You should come and help me do this. Yeah. Now you can do that together, and and the rest of the room is clean. Yeah. And so, and the whole thing is done, right? And then maybe the next time they do it themselves, or maybe they don't. You have to do it every time. But point being, room not clean at all, room clean except for the turtle tank. Why are we so bent on not wanting this? Right. Because we'd rather have this. That doesn't make any sense to me. Take this, rejoice in this, and then make this the baseline and build off of that. Yeah. Because now you take room clean except for the turtle tank and you build off of that instead of room a complete disaster and you're trying to build off of that. You're replacing those two things.
Yeah, and think of it this way. Like, we'll go back to the very statement we started this podcast off with. The one who knows me best is the one who loves me most. Now change that. The one who knows me best knows all my mistakes the most.
Right.
Oh yeah. What if Jesus decided to keep records of wrong?
It's not that it's the saying. That's the part with that saying that gets me so much is the one who knows me best is the one who loves me most. Right. Not the one who knows all of the good things about me.
No.
Loves me most.
No.
The one who knows me best.
Which knows every mistake I've ever made.
Yeah. The one who knows when I stub my toe and I give the old F and jammer.
Yeah.
That one who knows every time that I, kick some dust underneath the rug instead of picking it up.
Yep.
That one also is the one who loves me most. There are people who love me who don't know any of those things.
Right.
If they knew all of, I think you've said it before, like if we all had a TV screen that said our thoughts, right? Like, what would the world be like?
Right.
That's how God knows us.
Yes.
This is 100% how God knows us.
And like I say, if Jesus were to keep records of wrongs,
good luck.
He would have never went to the cross.
Right. We wouldn't exist.
No, because the flood for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. What was the joy? The very fact that what he is going to do was going to save the human race, despite what humans were doing. I mean, if Jesus kept records of wrong, we'd be the Old Testament. Right. We'd all be dead.
We would have never survived the flood.
No, we'd all be dead.
Would be gone.
We'd be locusts would eat us and killed our crops and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and that's why that's once again one of the things we have to remember is this is how God moves towards us on a daily basis. These things are because He is love. So these are the exact ways that He moved towards us. He doesn't keep records of wrongs. He doesn't envy. He doesn't boast. He's not proud. All these things are a description of how God moves towards the human race. And now we're just going to close it up because now it's...
Well, hold on. I'll tell you before we close it up.
Well, not close it up, but I was just going to say finish reading the scripture.
Right, finish reading it.
But it said, love bears all things, defending and holding other people up. Love believes the best about others, credits them with good intentions, is not suspicious. See, we can dig into all these.
Like, basically, you're saying, yeah. I mean, the credits them with good intentions is not suspicious. Is basically how we would put that now is you give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
that's a hard one.
Oh yeah,
I struggle with that one.
Yeah.
I struggle with that one hard. It's tough when I'm like, I know what this person, where they're going, and then in the back of my head I go, but do you? And I'm like, oh crap, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
What if I'm wrong? To me, that's giving somebody the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Is in the back of my head, I think, all of the assumptions you've made about this person, what if they're wrong?
Right.
What if the person, Josiah and I have this joke because there's this white truck that cuts us off all the time going to our house. We call it the guy is going home from work and has to poop real bad. Because the guy cut off Josiah when he was first learning how to drive and, boom, roars around the corner and Josiah's trying to take it super slow because he's learning how to drive. And Josiah pulled over on the side of the road and he gets out and I can't believe people drive like this. That's dangerous. And I said, what if that guy has to poop?
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I'm like, he's coming home. Think about it. He's coming home from work, just had a long day. If he doesn't get home, he's making a mess in his truck.
Yep.
And he was just like, and he started laughing. And now every time we see that truck, because the guy lives in our neighborhood and he's got like the side of his business written on his truck, so you recognize it every time. Yeah. He goes, there's the poop guy. Yeah. And it's, so whoever that guy is.
I mean, and that's the thought process that I ended up having to change is, not what that person's attitude and behavior is producing, but where is it coming from?
Right. You don't know.
You don't know their story. That's what I love about John Eldredge. That's what I love about the basics is the fact of that, one thing we're constantly told is you don't know a man until you know their story. And you don't.
Right.
I don't care how much you know a man and you've known him for years. If you haven't heard his entire story, the entirety of his story, you don't know him. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, if we could know everybody's story.
When we did the Year with Men,
yeah.
and we had that story time.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I in my head, I'm like, okay, I know what. And then you hear their story, and you're like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
No.
I mean, if you would have asked me to guess 10 things about this person, 10 would have not been what they just said.
No.
Let alone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And you think about that, Denny, and we can go off into a whole other tangent, but you think about that, that's how many men live, is that pretend life, because they're never invited into telling their story.
Right. Because they think that somebody's going to respond to them in the opposite of all of these ways.
Oh, yeah. Look at them. Hold something against them. Oh, yeah.
Keep a record of it. Oh, that person did this. Yeah. I'm going to hold on to that one.
So now they're not a good Christian because he did this. Right. Oh, exactly. I mean, so that's one of the things I try to put into practice is the fact of when there is a belligerent person or a person that's mean or whatever, what's the backstory? Mm-hmm. Because I believe every person has the choice or has the reality of being good. I don't think anybody wants to hate somebody or be mean to somebody. Instead of going, man, look what that person's doing, maybe you should go, where is that coming from?
And even more so, maybe this is the day it changes.
Right.
People can change.
Yeah. And maybe you're part of that.
Yeah. I mean, I had this conversation with Josiah today, right? My son is, hey, yeah, maybe that was the way this person is. But maybe they want to be different. Or maybe they are different.
And they can.
And maybe this is the day that they want to change.
Yeah.
And so we have to allow them to, because...
And that's what's so
That's important. What love is.
That's what's so important about love. The very fact that someone that gets loved, despite what they're doing, there's so much power in that it could give them the unction to want to change.
Right.
Because some of them probably, and I've said this in my own life, I can't.
Right.
This is like you said before.
I do it all the time. I call you all the time. I can't do this.
This is who I am.
It is what it is.
That is what it is. I can't stand that. And actually, Erwin McManus says that on his video about that is what it is, and he goes, "That's the most idiotic statement in the world." Because it is what you make it.
And I say that all the time.
It is what you make it. It's not is what it is. And I've said that to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, all of these things that we're reading are difficult, but at the same time, when the more we experience the love of God in our own life, the more we're apt to be able to resort to loving somebody else. It's just the truth. And how do you get the love of God? Well, that's how you get into His Word. You get into His presence. You get along other men that have like-minded hearts. You talk about scripture like this. And exactly what we're doing is how you will exude and you will pour out. You'll be a conduit of love more than a restrictor of it. There is no. I don't believe there's no set exact steps that you can. Now I can really be a good lover. Right. But I think that the more we experience God's love, which is this, the more we'll have to be able to resort to that when someone comes against us. And love believes the best about others, credits them with good intentions, is not suspicious. Love hopes all things, never giving up on people, but affirming their future. Love endures all things, persevering and remaining loyal to the end. In other words, the statement that it says in the other one is love never fails.
Just perseveres and never gives up.
Yep.
That's
never giving up on people.
On people, right. Right. Too little, too late, out the door.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and why do you think loneliness is one of the major killers of people? Why? Because they gave up on people.
Right. Or themselves.
Right. They gave up.
Why do you think suicide's such a big one? When you give up on yourself,
yeah,
or the people around you.
Why do you think the shootings are happening?
Right.
They're giving up on people.
Right.
Life is not valuable to them somehow, some way.
Here's the scariest part about this whole passage that you just read to me is what are you reading out of? What are you reading this out? I mean, this is a Bible verse, obviously, yeah. but this little book that breaks all this down.
Oh, it's my marriage ceremony.
It's a marriage ceremony.
Yeah,
so you've done a lot of marriage ceremonies.
Yes.
How many times have you said these verses during marriage ceremonies?
Oh, every single marriage ceremony.
Every single marriage ceremony. How do people get married ever if this is the standard by which you're agreeing to live by?
Jesus.
Right?
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
How many marriages, if every single marriage that you've done,
yeah.
So let's just use the number 100.
Yeah.
You've done 100 marriages.
Okay.
100 times you've said, "Hey, here's the rules by which you will operate in this marriage." And you listed all these things out. Mm-hmm. And then you go, "Do you agree to these rules?" And she says, "Yes." You go, "Do you agree to these rules?" He says, "Yes." Out of that 100, how many of them really understand what they're agreeing to?
Well, I don't. Once again, I see where you're going, what you're saying, but I think that
if we understood this,
but we also understand where it comes from. That's what makes it.
Man, you could change. I mean, you're changing families, and again, this is like. I feel like. Again, I feel like if we grasped this fully,
yeah.
It changes the way you look at things. It changes how you approach everything.
Everything. It changes how you approach yourself.
Yeah.
It changes how you approach your relationship with God, and it changes how you approach your relationship with others. It's an automatic.
Your kids,
everything.
it changes everything, and it's the basic tenet by which everything is built off of.
It's
what we read last week, right? What is the most important commandment? Love your Lord your God. Love God, love your neighbor.
Yeah.
Those are the two most important things.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, don't kill people, don't steal stuff, don't covet. Like, no, it was, so if you don't understand this one,
right,
and you're not living out of this one, then all those other things are, you're kind of just doing the dang thing.
Right.
You're missing a pretty big point.
At least making an effort to live this way.
Trying, yeah.
Yes. At least making an effort to live this way.
And I'm not saying again, this is not I'm doing this and so everyone else should. At all. This is a holy crap.
Yeah.
When you have this realization, it changes the way you look at everything.
Right. And the realization of that we cannot do it. We cannot love in this manner outside of the experience of love from the Father in this manner. We can't. You can't. I can't predict what my future would have been like before my wife loved me unconditionally the way she did. But I certainly know that I had no idea how to love people.
Right.
At all. Now my mom loved me the best she could. My dad loved me the best he could. They did what they could do, the knowledge that they had. But the more I read Scripture, the more I read about Jesus, because the Bible says that Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. Well, if God is love, then Jesus is love, and He's the visible image of that on the streets, like we live. And I continually read Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. I continually get into those books. Why? Because I want to see how He responds to people, because He's responding out of love. Well, Mike, He said, "Away from me, Satan." Yeah, He did.
Right.
Out of love.
Out of love, yeah. Here's another crazy part of that, right? Is that the Bible says Jesus is in you.
Yeah.
So that love is in us.
Come on.
If we know Jesus, then that love is in us.
Right.
And that's how we should then respond to God. Because Jesus constantly was like, I'm only telling you what the Father tells me.
Right.
Jesus was always like, hey, I'm only doing what the Father tells me to do.
Right.
Now that is inside of us.
Right.
And we have the ability to then basically combine, or to agree with that, and to agree to walk with that,
and to do only what
to.
the Father tells us to do.
Right.
We have that ability. We can do that.
Again, we have to. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And the craziest part to me is, I'll go back to the first statement, right? Is that God is love, and if you don't love, you don't know God. Right? You can't bits and piece this out.
But anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love. Right.
So you can't say, well, man, I'm going to try to be kind, and but I'm going to definitely hold records of wrongs, because some people, we should know all the things that they deserve it. What they did to me, you don't know.
Yeah.
And no, I don't. You're right. That person probably has some things.
Here's what it's getting to, though, and this is where I get a little kind of upset. Well, you don't know what they said to me on Facebook.
No, I don't.
Who cares?
Right.
I mean, no one's flogged you or left for dead. No one's whipped you. No one's beaten you. No, I mean, okay, so they said that you were a moron and they hate your guts. All right. Not my friend anymore.
Yeah, we're not saying like, hey, you need to, you need to invite them over for dinner.
Right. No. But it does say keep no record of wrongs. Right. So don't chew on it. Don't sit there and renew your mind with that.
Right.
What that person said.
And the next time that person comes to you and says, hey, you know what? I was wrong.
Right.
You don't go, well, that's too damn bad because you said it.
Right.
And it upset me.
I really believe,
and therefore, away from me,
right.
Satan.
I really believe, actually, what's happened in my marriage is my wife, I've said way more bad things to her over our 36 years than she's ever said to me, but the moments where she said things that were upsetting to me, the moments that I didn't respond or react out of anger back, and the moments I was patient, and the moment that I decided that I'm not going to lift myself up in this situation and blame her for it. It's funny how when you choose to operate out of love towards another person, in those moments, how God operates in the person. And 2 weeks later, she would come to me and say, 2 weeks ago I said this to you and I'm so sorry. Without me ever saying, I can't believe you did that to me. I totally believe that that's how God's love works.
So Bart from the Wild at Heart team, he does a talk and he says that either you can advocate for yourself or God can advocate for you, but you can't both do it.
Right.
So which one would you rather have advocating for you? You or God?
Right. Yeah.
That's what you're showing right there. Is 100%. That you allowed God to advocate for you, and He did.
Right.
I do that with my kids frequently now, where again they say things, and I'm like, I'm gonna come over there, and you're gonna do this because I said it, and I'm dad.
Right.
And instead, it's all right. Well, we can head down that road. I don't think it's a good road to head down, and I can tell you that this is not leading to health and happiness for you. But I'm here. I'm your dad, and we'll start walking down that road. And it doesn't usually get very far before they turn around and go, well, hold on a second. Is there a better way to do this? Yeah, I think so. Right. Let's try this.
And once again, one of the things that we can't get confused about is, if you're a wife and your husband is physically beating you.
Yeah, let's not get crazy.
And your life is in danger.
Right.
That's not something that you go, well, I need to be patient with him.
If you're a guy and a guy's beating on you, right? We're
not saying that. And there are some people out there that will teach you that. At the same time, God says He's slow to anger. Anger is not necessarily something wrong, but He's slow to anger. And so once again, you can go so far one way with this, right, and you can go so far the other way with it. And the most important thing is asking the question, God, what would you do in this situation? What are you doing with this person? What is going on? And
I think the important part is keeping this stuff in mind,
right,
when you're making those decisions, right? Like, am I walking in all of these things? Yes. Okay, then I'm okay to proceed forward.
Right.
However that looks.
And understanding that, once again, I said this like 6 times already, and understanding that this is how God approaches us.
Right.
Every day. Because without Christ, a lightning bolt would have killed me a long time ago.
Right.
For sure. And the realization that Jesus made that sacrifice for a person like me, I'm pretty sure that I can try to sacrifice and love others.
He gave it a little effort.
He gave His life up for me.
Right. Yeah.
While I was still a sinner, He still died for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't choose Him. I was running from Him. He chose me. When I was telling my wife who the F is God, and if He was God, blah, 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 there is no F in God, He still was looking at me going, that's mine.
Mm-hmm.
He's mine. I'm going to get Him.
He knew that's how you were going to address, or you were going to have relate to Him, and He still loved you.
Still approached me in this manner.
Still approached you in that manner. Knowing it wasn't like, I'm going to approach Him in that manner, and then when He responds to me like this, then I'm going to switch gears. No, it was, I know He is going to respond to me in this manner, but I am still going to approach Him in this manner. That's the part that makes me go, holy crap.
Yeah.
The one who knows me best is the one who loves me most. He knew Jesus knew those people were going to spit on Him.
Yeah.
And He still went, all right.
And to this day, people are still denying Him
mm-hmm.
in His very existence or very act. But yet, this is how He approaches every one of them, despite their religious beliefs.
All right. I think we can
end this one.
Wrap there. That's a lot, man. I mean, we've gone down this path a few different times, and I'm so excited, to get these things and to be able to get this out. This is it's so good. And again, it's so weird that this topic, I was just about to say that we chose this topic, but we didn't choose this topic. This topic chose us.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know that either one of us went, here's what we should talk about, right? No, it just sort of has happened. And it's so funny that to start off this podcast, that we're just doing, 2 guys, we're going to we're not even going to pick, that the topic of love and what it means is the first thing we're going to tackle. So that's super cool to me. It's been great. I don't know if it's over. Frankly, every week I think, holy crap, I don't know where else we're going to go with that. And then we come back together and we're like, oh, here's a whole new direction. So I don't know that we're done with this topic, but it's been super good so far. So if you haven't been, go back, listen to the other ones. We're not that far deep down this road, 3, 4, whatever, however many episodes, go back and listen. Like and subscribe to the channel. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on mantoman.org. We have events coming up. Go to the events tab. Check that out. Big year coming in 2023. A big year. I'm super excited. I'm ready to see what happens, because it's super cool as to what we have coming up. So.
And once again, for all you that support Man to Man, we just say thank you for your generosity. Your generosity is what's going to help move this thing forward, and it's going to cause life change in a lot of men. Mm-hmm. And so for those of you, I know it's the end of the year, or right now this podcast is
beginning of the year probably.
Yeah, but today is
the end of the year. Yeah.
Today is, we got 2 more days till New Year's. I just want to say a personal thank you for every one of you that are contributing and financially and in all sorts of other ways. Your prayers are most important. Just be praying for this, that next year we can affect men's lives like crazy and see lives change. I'm excited for it. That's what we do.